Hi, welcome to ITIL interview questions video tutorial from Simplilearn. I am CMR Chandra MR, a certified ITL V3 expert, ITL for managing professional, PMP, Prince 2 practitioner, Prince 2 Agile practitioner, Agile Scrum Master, COVID 5, and DevOps. As part of this video tutorial, we are going to look at the probable questions which would come across when someone faces IT service management interview questions. So firstly, we need to understand while we go for an interview related to IT service management roles, the questions mostly revolves around the best practices of IT service management. So one such best practice is ITIL. So what is ITIL? So ITIL is a best practice which refers to set of detailed practices that highlights the best practices for delivering high quality IT services. This framework helps businesses manage risk, strengthen customer relations, establish cost-effective practices, and create a stable IT environment. ITL being only de facto best practices available today in the industry, so it is followed, adapted, adopted across various IT organizations across the globe, and organizations have become successful by achieving their objectives related to IT service management and business. What is ITSM? So ITSM stands for IT Service Management, which basically refers to the practices of delivering IT services and supporting internal customers with help of people, process, and technology. So ITIL being the best practice for IT service management is used by ITIL professionals to implement the best practices for ITSM within their organization and to ensure the delivery of the value. So as we know, value is realized by consumers only when service management organization engages with the businesses and customers, the consumers, very closely. So when we say value related to a business or value related to consumer, which they realize can only happen through better engagement, which means value can be created only through value co-creation. There should be close engagement between service provider and service consumer. What are the dimensions of ITIL? So there are four dimensions which are looked up when managing IT services. That includes organizations and people, information and technology, partners and suppliers, value streams and processes. So ITIL defines these four dimensions that are important for the effective and efficient delivery of value by the organization in the form of products and services to its stakeholders and customers. So these four dimensions are influenced by various different factors. The one which we can focus mainly are political factors, economical factors, social factors, technological factors, legal factors, and environmental factors. So it is very important to consider these four dimensions and influencing factors while delivering an IT services by service provider. So these dimensions, when I say organization and people, so this refers to the corporate culture needs to support the organization's objectives and to make sure there is appropriate level of staff capacity and competencies. So the structure of organization, the way the organization is organized to ensure the business objectives are accomplished. So IT service management being part of a business for managing IT services, there needs a specific set of organization structure and a specific set of people with the specialization. So information and technology refers to ensure that there is a right set of technology considerations the service provider makes. So organization needs to ensure that to maximize the value of the data while delivering technology services, they need to manage risks and obligations that result from owning that information. Partners and suppliers refers to those third-party organizations who play an important role to increase the value through co-creation. They actively engage with service provider to collectively provide or create that value for service consumers. So they actively involve in designing, deployment, delivery, support, and continuous improvement of services and their relationship to the organization. Value streams and processes. So these are considered with various different flow which happens within the service provider. So right from the point, the trigger which happens for providing an IT services till the value realization by the consumers. So these are concerned with how the different parts of the organization work in combined manner to make sure value is created with the help of products and services. So these are activities, workflows, controls, processes, procedures which are required to fulfill the organization's objectives. So each processes interfaces, each activities interfaces has to be looked at carefully to ensure there are no bottlenecks in the flow of the value stream. So, what is service portfolio, service catalog, and service pipeline? So, the term service portfolio refers to the list of all the products and services of an organization. So, when I say portfolio, so this terminology itself refers in business sense. A service provider will have a set of services or products which are to be provided to the consumers, the considerations what they have made to introduce the new set of products or services, and evaluation of the existing services to check whether they're still viable and justifiable by business to keep or just retire that particular service. So such decisions are made as part of portfolio decisions. Similarly, for a service provider, all that services which service provider keeps in the operation, which means they provide it actively to their consumers. Secondly, the one which is in pipeline, which service provider thinks about introducing newly, and the one which service provider evaluates, which is in currently operation stage, those can be retired. So such strategic decisions are made as part of service portfolio management. Speaking about service catalog, so service catalog refers to the list of products or services which are currently offered by service organization, service provider. So these are the one which is actively provided to consumers, and consumers are utilizing those services, using those services, and then the business value is realized by using those services. Service catalog captures the details of these services which are active currently. So these are referred by service consumer before they avail this service. So for example, if there is a website of an organization like a mobile service provider, the details of the plan of mobile services can be considered as service catalog. Service in pipeline. So as I was mentioning earlier, so the services which are yet to be provided to the consumers, which are not live, but further organization is considering to introduce those, and those are getting created, those are being evaluated. So these are the services which are not yet introduced to the market. So the service pipeline would refer to the services that are still not live, and they are proposed, they are designed, they're in transition stage. So those can be referred as service in pipeline which are not live. So explain the difference between an end user and customer. So these terminologies, the end user, the customer, the sponsor, are the one which are introduced in ITL 4. So where end user refers to the one who is using the service, actively using the service. So whereas customer refers to the one who provides the requirement of the services, products, and may or may not be able to choose different products or supplies. So now, important thing we need to consider here is we speak about three roles like sponsors, customers, and end users. So sponsor refers to those who approves the budget for procuring the services. And we see these roles as part of service consumers who receives the services from a service provider. What is SLA? SLA or service level agreement is an agreement between the service provider and its customers. So SLA will detail the quality of services the customer expects from the provider and the metrics that will be measured along with the remedies and penalties that service provider would face should the service not be of the expected quality. So further, if there are any clarity required on the services which needs to be received by service consumer and provided by service provider, so service level agreement will become a basic reference document. So this will be established formally when service is being provided by a service provider to a service consumer. What are the types of service providers? So service providers are of three types. So one is internal service provider, second is shared service provider, third is external service provider. So when I say internal service provider, the service provider is internal to a business unit of an organization and focuses on the requirement of the business unit. Whereas external service providers are the one who provide the services to external customers, who is external to the organization. So they would handle specific and special scenarios depending on the market conditions. So here a formal establishment of an agreement, service level agreement is required while providing services to external customers. So shared service provider are the one who are internal to organization, but they cater to entire organization. So unlike internal service providers who are very specific to a specific business unit, shared service providers provide the services to all the business units within the organization. What is service request? So the service request refers to the request which are placed from the users for information or to advise a standard change or access to particular services or a specific product. The service request involves things that have already been approved by organization like pre-authorized, low risk, low impact changes which can come into the system without any problem, and they do not require any additional permissions because of the level of impact and the kind of effort or investment required for those. A standard change, for example, a password reset, can be considered as a service request. Explain PDCA, Plan Do Check Act cycle. So PDCA, Plan Do Check Act cycle, is used in businesses for the control and continuous improvement of products and processes. So this involves four activities: plan, do, check, act, where while planning, the improvements are analyzed, checked, and then those are planned, and there is a measure of success which needs to be checked at when that is implemented. So all these are planned very well. So what could be the reason for trigger to putting certain efforts of improvement or resolving of certain problems? So these requires a thorough analysis before something is planned to implement it. So once the plan is ready, so that will be implemented. So that will be done as part of do, which involves the implementation of those improvements, resolution of whatever is proposed for a specific causes, and all the activities which are planned, all the activities which are defined as part of the plan are put into action here and deliver those results required. So once it is executed, it is very important to check whether the results are accomplished as planned. So this involves monitoring, measuring, reviewing, and the results obtained here are compared to the factors that constitute success discussed in the planning stage. So once it is checked, it will become visible whether it is successful or not. Based on that findings, whether we accomplish that improvement what was planned, did we achieve the results what was intended, or should we is there any deviations from what we had planned? So those are understood that the further actions are determined. So explain the RACI model. So RACI. So RACI stands for responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed. So the RACI model is a tool that helps identify different roles and responsibilities with ease during the project or services. The requirement of RACI chart, the establishment of RACI chart helps the individual roles in the organization to understand what is that they are responsible and accountable for. The term responsible refers to those who perform the work to complete the task. Depending on the task, responsibilities are assigned to them. Whereas the term accountable refers to those who is responsible for the specific deliverable. More than responsible, it is accountable, answerable, the ownership through the correct completion of the task. So they take the ownership for successful completion of that particular activity assigned to them as accountable. The individuals who are accountable can also be responsible. So R and A in a RASI chart can exist together. But for a given activity, only one person, one role should be accountable. So consultant refers to an individual who provide information about the task and are consulted as it progresses. This usually involves back and forth communication. And when I need certain guidance or when I need certain clarifications, we will consult certain individuals with certain specialization. So that roles, uh, the performing individuals who are responsible can easily understand whom should they consult while delivering certain activities. So informed refers to the individuals who are kept informed regarding the progress, about the completion, about the percentage of completion. So these roles may be someone who may require to do the activities related to completion of the one which is done relating to this particular deliverable. At the same time, inform to those authorities who should know the status of that specific deliverable. So responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed. So these are the four RACI are represented against the activity to a given role. So typical RASI charts looks like this. So looking at this, we see that there are five roles like project manager, strategist, designer, front-end developer, and back-end developer. So project deliverables are given. So if you look at any of these deliverables, there is only one role who is accountable. For example, if you say sitemap designing, if I look at this activity, designer is accountable, whereas strategist is responsible. So you can see C and I in various different roles. A should be always with one role for a given activity. R can be as many roles as possible. Similarly with C and I. R can also exist with A. That is possible. So these rules should be kept in mind while establishing RASI chart. So these type of metrics creation is essential so that the roles would have a proper clarity about what is that they're accountable for, what is that they're responsible for. So based on that, they can deliver and perform the activities. So explain how availability, agreed service time, and downtime are related. So when you use the terminology called availability, it refers to an ability of an IT services or any configuration item to perform its expected function when required. So for example, if I say a service is provided between 9 and 10, 9 a.m. to 10 p.m., for example. So if that counter is open from 9 a.m. to 10 p.m., means that is service is available. So before 9 a.m., after 10 p.m., you cannot expect that services to be available because service window, that service is available during that service window. Similarly, for today's scenario where IT services, where those services are done online, so portal are available 24 bar 7. For example, net banking, you can go and log in anytime, 24 hours. So availability here is 24 hours in a given day. So accordingly, service provider has to fulfill or provide the services to the service consumer. So agreed service time is the expected time during which the service will be operational. As we looked at the example of net banking, as well as the example of a specific service which is done between 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. So downtime refers to the time within the agreed service time during which the service is not operational. Now, if by chance we took the net banking as an example, if by chance the net banking goes down because of various reasons, so server may go down, network may go down, application may go down. So any downtime of these components which are contributing to the services may result in service unavailability. So the downtime contributes towards service unavailability, results in service unavailability. So the reduction of number of downtimes, the reduction of number of times the services degrades ensures high availability. So high availability solutions has to be looked at based on the expectation, availability expectation of the service consumer. So availability can be calculated using this formula which says agreed service time. For example, net banking, when I say 24 bar 7, 24 hours, Downtime, let me say there are certain incidences which resulted in service going down for 15 minutes. So 24 hours minus 15 minutes. So we can convert the 24 hours into number of minutes, and then that can become base. So that will provide you the percentage of availability in a given service window. What is post implementation review? So the post implementation review refers to an evaluation analysis of the working solution in its final state. It is performed after a change request is made and to determine if the change and its implementation is successful or not. So any initiative taken, so like PDCA, we were speaking about plan, do, check, act for improving some things or delivering certain specific deliverables as part of the services or project. So did we really accomplish it? Did we achieve those results what is required? So these are checked in post implementation review, and if there are any variances found, so necessary change requests are taken to address those specific deviations. So post implementation review answers the questions like this: did the change solve the problem it aims to address? In the case of failure, did the backup plan work? Did the change have an impact on the customers? Were resources allocated effectively through the processes? Was the change implemented based on a budget and in a timely manner? So explain the 7 R's of change management. So the term 7 R's refers to 7 questions relating to change management. So before a change is actually executed, a change request has to be raised. So these change request has to capture the details of the proposed change by answering the questions which are associated with 7 R's. So change management, as we know, enables organization to ensure all the changes are controlled and implemented effectively to accomplish the business objectives. So while doing this, it is very essential to answer the questions related to all 7 R's. So what does this 7 R's means? What are these R's refers to? So who raised the change? So this will indicate or has to put the information about those who are actually initiating this change, requesting for this change. So they would raise this change. So who raised the change? An individual or a specific entity. So what is the reason for the change? So why? What actually triggered to initiate this particular change? So then what is the return the change will deliver? So what is that expected return by doing this change? So what risks are there if the change is not carried out? Or what risks are there if change is carried out? So means when I say risk, we speak about positive risks and negative risks. So but positive risk anyway when it happens, that is an intent what you are doing. So it is very important for us to understand both the scenarios. What if I do this change? What if I don't do this change? You need to analyze both the scenarios. Then what resources are required to perform the change? So what resources? Human resources, technology resources, facilities, which are very essential to deliver this change effectively. So who is responsible for this change? The individuals, the specialization, the human resources, or the who is actually taking an accountability, like RASI chart you can establish here. Who is responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed when you actually do this particular change. So what is the relationship between this change and other changes? So whenever we are delivering some changes, whenever we are doing some changes, so we need to ensure other changes around this specific change. So if I'm implementing a server, means a new server getting into a data center. So I need to make some space for it. There should be some readiness. Other changes means a specific change need to be made to that environment before I go and put this particular server. So that is one thing we can think of a relationship with the change associated to the primary change. Secondly, when I do the change, other team or other functions would have planned for the change on the same schedule, during the same schedule. So we need to understand those. Is this change is going and conflicting with it? So besides these 7 R's, we should also know there are scenarios where changes will fail. So this 7 R's requires to be captured in change request, fine. But once the change is being implemented, If it is not successful, what should we do? So I would be adding the eighth R to these 7 Rs, which means rollback plan. What is the remediation plan when change fails? So we should be ready to ensure that business will not get impacted when change fails. So we should come back to the original working condition. So what is the difference between a change request and a service request? So typically a change request refers to a formal proposal to make alteration to a product, services or system and stakeholders. So this needs to be approved and execution should be happened accordingly. A service request is done by the users, like for an information, for an advice, a standard change, and access to particular service. Now, change and service request, when we link these both, so there is something called standard change, which is pre-approved, pre-authorized, low impact, low risk. So since these are pre-authorized, there is no formal request which is raised to do these changes. Instead, these are requested by the user directly and they are pre-approved and implemented by service request management function or the team. Like service desk takes up this practice, service request management practice, and they would implement it. So no specific approval mechanism is followed while fulfilling the standard changes. So what is the problem and how is it managed? So term problem refers to cause of one or more incidents. So generally what I have seen whenever I ask these questions during my training programs, what is problem? People tend to say problem is repeated incidents. So repeated incidents are repeated incidents. That is, those cannot be called as problems. So problem refers to the underlying cause which resulted in the incident. It may be a single incident, it may be multiple incidents. So we need to find out those. We need to find those root causes and we need to have workarounds or permanent solutions for those causes, elimination of those causes. So that due to these causes, the incidents will not occur anymore. So problem management is the practice or the process that manages the life cycle of the problems. So detecting and providing solutions or workarounds are considered as successes to ensure the impact of organization is limited and doesn't reoccur. So problem management phases includes problem identification, problem control, and error control. So explain the difference between an incident, problem, and known error. So I have come across people who alternatively use these terminologies, incident versus problem. So here we need to clearly understand the difference. So only then we can able to have a right actions in place. So the term incident refers to an unplanned interruptions or disruptions or reduction in quality of an IT services to the service consumer. So this is a scenario where service is not available to the service consumer. This is a scenario where the services performance has degraded. It is not usable at the moment. Like internet services, I cannot browse. It is very slow. These are the incident scenarios as an example. So for the occurrence of those incidences, there may be certain specific root causes. So we call those root causes as problem. So problem needs to be analyzed, the root causes needs to be eliminated so that the incidents related to those causes will not occur in future. So the known error refers to the problem that is already diagnosed. There is a workaround or permanent solutions that has already been created. Means known error in the sense, yes, we know about this particular causes and we have the solutions or workaround for those. So there may be scenario where we know the causes, but we may not even know the workaround or solutions. So problem management is the process or practice which helps us to identify those. Then what is a workaround? So the term workaround refers to a temporary fixes or resolution for a specific occurrence of an incident which will have a known problem or known underlying cause, which is not where we don't know either what could be the permanent solution for this. So we just go through the workaround for that incident which has occurred and ensure business will have a least impact. So that is workaround. Workaround to restore, workaround to ensure the people who are working on it has a specific solution so that they can continue working it. So parallelly the root causes are found, the workaround for that will be found, and also maybe permanent solution if it is feasible and possible. So the time frame for a workaround is not defined and could range from just a few seconds to several years, because nobody knows what is the cause, nobody knows what could be the solution for that particular cause which is found. So as a scenario of business should not have any negative impacts. So workarounds are created so that things can be quickly restored for the organization, the business continuity, or the transaction which is being made, that should not get stopped, because that would result in business standstill. So what are some workarounds recovery options? So some of the recovery options, though best practices don't mention specifically about this, but these are the terminologies which are used in industry. So like fast recovery, intermediate recovery, gradual recovery. So fast recovery refers to the recovery which would take place within the least amount of time, for example, 24 hours. Intermediate recovery is something which is higher than fast recovery and lesser than gradual recovery, which may be termed like 3 days as an example. So gradual recovery can occur in a matter of days or weeks, but always after 24 hours, after some specific number of days. So now these terminologies provides us an impression how long it would take for resolve this, and also that will help us in analyzing the impact of the business and have a specific workaround to reduce the impact of the business accordingly. And we need to decide how quickly can we resolve this. We need to analyze that. So what are the objectives of incident management? So incident management, when we say, we should understand what is incident, so which we discussed a few slides back. Now incident management is part of IT service management practices that ensures restoring the services to normal working condition as early as possible. So these will have an objective of reporting and resolving the incident with IT services as soon as it occurs. So focusing on the satisfaction of customers and users. So ultimately, business should have a least impact, and that should able to function and accomplish the business objectives. So what are some knowledge management systems? Capacity management information system, one knowledge management system, which is part of the entire management system. This can be one example what we can think of. Similarly, availability management information system. So likewise, we'll have many MIS, management information systems, for each of the practices which are used. So if I look at capacity management information system, so this is a collection of information regarding to IT infrastructure usage, capacity and performance. The data is gathered in a consistent manner that is stored in either a single or series of databases. So one important thing when we do this is ensuring the integrity of these knowledge management systems. So that should be up to date and current and relevant. So similarly, availability management information system can also be referred as a repository of all availability management data and usually stored in multiple physical location, as we looked at for CMIS. So further we can think about known error database, which are managed by problem management process with the details of known error, the identified errors, along with what could be the turnaround or restoration or workaround for this particular known error. So these can be referred by the team which is doing incident management whenever such incident occurs. The first thing the service desk or the team who is actually resolving the incident would look at the moment there is a incident logged. So they will check if there any resolution already there for these type of incidents in known error database. So this will help in quick resolutions of those incidents. What is the standard change? So every changes implemented into a system has to have a specific change request and approvals. But however, the standard change are the one which are pre-approved, pre-authorized, low impact and low risk. So these are identified and then approved in advance, and service request management will fulfill this. So users would request to service desk through an email or through a call or through the platforms what they have to place those requests. and service request management will take care of fulfilling those standard changes. So, what is service value system? Explain service value system. So, service value system is defined in ITIL 4, which describes the different components and activities of organization which should be working together as a whole to enable value creation. So these involves the various inputs, the value being the output. So there are around five components we need to look at when I say service value system. So that is guiding principle, the governance, service value chain, practices, and continual improvement. So unlike we discussed service life cycle scenario while studying ITL V3, ITL 4 definitely acknowledges the thought of service life cycle because service life cycle exists. So at a given point in time for an organization, all the services in certain stage of their life cycles has to be looked together to ensure the value is created to the consumers as well as the business on continuous basis. So those services has to be managed together, and that involves today's market dynamics. So service value system helps organization to understand those dynamics and fulfill the business requirements. So the guiding principles refers to the recommendations that can guide an organization in every scenarios regardless of their changing goals, strategies, type of work and management or structure. So those are applicable irrespective of the change of scenario, different scenarios the organization has. So the term governance provides the structure through which an organization can ensure that the directions can be established and controlled can be maintained. And all investments made by an organizations are aimed to create value and to support business objectives. So when it comes to service value chain, which is core of service value system, it is an operating model for creation, delivery, and continuous improvement of services. So it consists of six activities that can be combined in a wide variety of ways to form multiple value streams. So, whereas practice refers to those set of organizational resources aimed at performing work or to fulfill an objective. So, ITL 4 defines 34 practices. So, these are put into action as part of service value chain. Continuous service improvement focuses on improvement by improving efficiency, effectiveness, and reducing the cost. Well, more than reducing the cost, optimizing the cost, resources, and other IT management practices. And applicability of continual improvement can be to the entire service value system. Like improvement should be seen in service value chain. Improvement should be seen in practices. Similarly, in governance, so it is applicable to all those what we do as part of service management. Opportunity and demand. Opportunity refers to options, means the one which is available for service provider to grab or to consider so that the necessary requirement of the consumers are realized. So the possibilities are seen where the organization can provide value to the stakeholders and ensure that that value is realized by service consumer as well. So opportunity exists, but that needs to be realized. Whereas demand refers to the needs or desire for products which are being asked right now. So those needs to be fulfilled. The moment demand comes in, it has to be fulfilled. For example, if I speak about scenario of ticket booking portal as an example, the service provider who would see the ticket, who has created the ticket booking platform, has seen the opportunity. So people go over the counter, purchase the ticket. For example, movie ticket or sports events ticket. So they go to the counter and purchase. There is a long queue. It is an opportunity exists. So if I make the ticket booking online, can I eliminate these challenges or reduce that uh, clarity? What or the ambiguity of scenario? What if I go there? Do I really get the ticket? The service consumer may not have the clarity until the person goes there and stands in the queue and purchase the tickets. It's time consuming, tedious, as well as not very certain. It is very uncertain whether are we going to get the ticket or not, depending on the crowd. But realizing this opportunity, when there is online platform or a mobile app is created. So I as a consumer can just go and see, okay, these are the number of tickets sold, or these are the one which are available, and I would purchase. So ease of transactions and confirmation to me that it is available, not available. So I can decide whether to go or not. So I can avoid, I can save my time and energy. So that is the solutions what is made to fulfill that opportunity. But what happens when the portal is created now, the solution is implemented, people starts logging in and start booking tickets. So that we call it as a demand, which needs to be fulfilled. So these demands will have variations depending on number of consumers or users visiting the website and then booking the tickets. So demand refers to those which is in front of you, means the service provider to fulfill. Why do we need relationship management? So service provider and service consumer, while the services are provided, it is very essential for service consumer to realize the value, benefits what is delivered from the services. So as we know, services are very intangible in nature. The active involvement, active collaboration with the service consumer by service provider helps in ensuring service consumer realizes the value. And also, service provider will get insights in terms of what kind of services are to be provided to the service consumer and how my services are creating value or fitting into the structure of business what service consumer has and how is it complementing. That picture will be very clear. So because of that, what happens? Being a service provider, since I know what kind of value my services are creating, so I can able to also contribute further in terms of improvising it to enable the consumer's business better. So this is an ongoing transaction which keeps happening. So relationship management ensures that the organizations supplies that particular service and ensures the performance is managed appropriately to support the provision of the services seamlessly with the quality required to the products or services. So this requires active collaboration between service provider and service consumer. So value can be created by co-creation, means collaboration. So value co-creation is the terminology which is mentioned or spoken more often nowadays. There should be active collaboration between service provider and service consumer. So this ensures the benefits what is realized by service consumer is known to the service provider as well, and necessary corrections needs to be made, can also be looked at carefully and addressed. So the main objective is to establish and nurture the links between organizations, that is a service provider and its customers or stakeholders. So why do we need information security management system? So the term information security management system refers to protection of information of an organization. It may be the information related to service provider. It may be information related to the service consumer who is utilizing the services from a service provider. So it is very essential for a service provider to consider the information related to stakeholders across the organization, within the organization, the information related to all the customers, consumers who are external, internal, and also the suppliers who is external again. So these needs to be safeguarded so that those are not misused or misrepresented or worked against the organization. So to safeguard that particular or protect to that particular information security management system is very essential. So this will also help aligning business and information security while also making sure information is handled effectively across services and service management activities. So CIA, confidentiality, integrity, and availability of information has to be ensured for effectiveness of the business. So only then I think organization will have a better protection and better ability to make decision with by having access to right set of data and information. So information security management system has to ensure that information is available and usable when required and that these system can resist, recover or prevent failures. Access to information is only to those individuals who have the right to know it or right to access it and use it. The information should be complete, accurate, and safe from unauthorized access. So, information exchange or business transaction has to be trusted, and that should have an integrity. The integrity of the information has to be maintained.
So, what is known error? The term known error refers to the problem that has been analyzed and has not been resolved. So, this term associates with problem management because problem management focuses on identifying the underlying cause related to occurrence of certain incidents. It may be a single incident or multiple incidents. So, as the cause of incidents are identified, as the problems are identified, it is required to have a workaround or resolution for those particular cause which are found. So, these root cause are referred as errors. So, the resolution of these errors may not have a permanent solution. For that, there can be a workaround. So, the known error database captures the details of the probable workaround and solutions for the errors which are identified and analyzed. So, this will help resolving the incident quickly and restore the services for users. What is warranty? So, the term warranty refers to an assurance that a product or services will meet agreed requirements. When we say warranty, generally people think it's about number of years the organization says the warranty applies. But the number of years which is mentioned there itself is not warranty. Instead, the term warranty in that scenario refers that aspects of warranty applies for that number of years. So warranty touches upon availability, capacity, security, and continuity of any services. So it focuses on how the services performs and to find whether the service is fit for use. It typically refers to the availability of the service, its degree of security, its capacity, and its continual working. What is service desk? So service desk is a function or a practice where it acts as a single point of contact for all the users. So whenever users have an incident, as an issue, as a query, has to fulfill their standard service requests, they connect to service desk. So service desk provides a communication point for users to report operational issues, queries, and requests. So the roles in the service desk requires a great customer handling skills, and they should have ability to connect with the customers, consumers, users in such a way that they can able to address the issues or queries which has come from the users. This requires a very good communication skills, an ability to empathize and emotional intelligence, and also a great interpersonal skills. What are the objectives of service desk? So some of the objectives of service desk includes restoring the services, the incidents quickly and restore the normal service operations in the event of any such disruptions or interruptions. So there are various different steps which is followed by service desk, which is defined in incident management practice, service management practice. So steps needed to taken to make improvement for user awareness about the IT issues and to encourage the use of IT services, components and resources. So IT service desk will also assist ITSM processes and functions by escalations if they are unable to resolve at their level. Explain the objectives of design and transition on value chain. So service value chain defined in service value system focuses on ensuring that designing and transition aspects are considered so that business value is created. So service value chain consists of the activities that help in creation of value. So this component, the design and transition activity, which is defined in service value chain, is used to ensure the product and services meet the quality, cost, and time requirements of the stakeholder. What is the purpose of the deployment management practice? So the deployment management practice is used to move new or changed hardware, software, documentation, processes, or any other component to a live environment. So earlier we used to speak like release and deployment management as a single process. So from ITIL 4 onwards, the dynamics associated with releasing a specific service or service component versus deployment of a service component or ensuring that is available for user to use, there is a difference. So one requires a planning and a specific practice to ensure that it is scheduled and that schedule is adhered with, whereas deployment refers to doing the activity of deployment in that schedule, which involves the activities related to technology as well as any other readiness which is required for ensuring the product or services are available to user to use. It can also be involved in deploying components to other environments for the process of testing and staging. So what is continual improvement model? The continual improvement model defines a set of steps for implementing improvements. The model uses techniques like SWOT analysis, which refers to strength, weakness, opportunity, and threats, balanced scorecard reviews, and maturity assessments. In specific, ITIL, the IT Service Management Best Practices, uses a continual improvement model which involves various different questions like what is the vision, where are we now, where do we want it to be, how do we get there, did we get there, and how to keep the momentum going. So in between you will take the action which is required to implement that improvements. So it acts as high level guide to support improvement initiatives. With its iterative approach, it increases the chance of ITSM initiatives becoming success. Strong focus is placed on customer value and make sure improvements can be connected to the organization's vision. So this requires measuring the services and service performance, not just service performance, the components performance, CIs, configuration items performance, technology components, people's performance, the process performance, which ultimately complement to the performance of the service. So the performances of these should ensure complementing to the business objectives, and any improvement considerations which are made are based on the business requirements and accomplishment of business objectives. What is an IT asset? An IT asset represents any financially valuable component that can contribute to delivery of an IT product or service. So each of these IT assets may be configured as part of an IT service because every service is made of a specific component, a product or a service. If I think about a monitoring service, an IT monitoring service, if you look at, when I speak about monitoring tool, it is a product. When I speak about the person sitting monitoring, people resource. When I speak about documentation, that is also a configuration item. Similarly, internet service is very essential to make this monitoring service successful. Meaning many configuration item, which is basically an IT asset, are configured in such a way to fulfill the objectives of the services. So similarly, these IT assets can also be in a library like spares. Whenever there is a repair required, resolution of incident required, the IT assets kept in a library can be used to resolve those incidents. So this basically all those components which are used to configure the specific IT services configured already as part of that IT service plus the one which is stored for future use can also be referred as IT assets. So these needs to be monitored and ensure they remain functioning always. So that requires continued monitoring and checking the IT assets functions and their ability to contribute to the service objectives. What are emergency changes? So the emergency changes refers to the changes that need to be introduced as soon as possible. Now, when does the emergency scenario arrives? So when would anyone considers the services requires a resolution, like incident occurred, some major impact occurred. So it is required to ensure the resolution has been implemented to resolve that incident so that business will have a normal services for them to function. Now, whenever the incident occurs, whenever such emergency scenarios occurs, and that resolutions has to be done only by doing certain changes. So, in that scenarios, the emergency change requests are raised, which are used to resolve the incidents and then quickly restore the services for the business. Otherwise, other two types of changes we can think of is the normal change which has a significant impact to the business in terms of improvement, in terms of bringing new features, functionality into existing services, which also needs a specific request, change request has to be raised, and whether it is normal change request or emergency changes, that it has to be approved by change control board or change advisory board. However, in emergency changes scenario, this change advisory board is a subset of main change advisory board who are having an authority to authorize the emergency changes. So while authorizing, the impact to the business, the impact to the various different business scenarios are analyzed before approval. What is change enablement? So the change enablement is the practice of maximizing the number of IT changes that are successful by making sure risks are properly assessed, changes are authorized to proceed, and to manage the change schedule. So whenever there is a request for change raised, so that needs to be thoroughly evaluated and approved. So which is done by change advisory board. So implementation plans are looked at, the various different resources, the cost, the schedules which are evaluated, and at the same time, what if the change fail? What is that change fails? What is the remediation? What is how are you going to roll back to the original condition and minimize the impact to the business in a case where change fails? And also the conflicting of schedule with other changes which are initiated are also checked. So change enablement has to ensure the value creation better than the one which is currently. So change enablement, as we were mentioning earlier, involves understanding normal change scenario, emergency change scenario, and standard change scenario. These needs to be very well documented, very well defined, so that same can be followed to accomplish the compliance as well as the standardization of that for better control. So any change should ensure a better control of changes. Any change enablement practice has to ensure efficiency and effectiveness of the changes implemented. What is the purpose of supplier management? So supplier term refers to the third party organization who supplies certain services or products to service provider. So supplier management ensures that organizations, suppliers and their performance is managed appropriately so that the services which are provided to the consumer by the service provider are sufficiently supported, and the services or supply from the supplier is provisioned seamlessly with the quality products and services. Whatever is supplied by a supplier, whether it is a product or goods or a service, should complement to the service provider's service objectives accomplishment. So service provider has to ensure a great relationship with supplier management, and also ensuring suppliers provide all the services which are required to complement, means as per the agreement. When I say all the services, as per the agreement, as per the mutual understanding about supply of goods or services. The main objectives of supplier management are to maintain supplier contract database, which means every supplier, third party entity who is external, there should be established contract which guides through the entire relationship. Ensure the relationship with the supplier is maintained throughout the life cycle of the supplier, means throughout the existence of that supplier in this particular service object to accomplish this service objective. Negotiating and establishing contracts with suppliers, which has to happen regularly. So we onboard supplier, we monitor and manage suppliers throughout the life cycle of supplying, and then we also look at the supplier's performance on a regular basis, and we renew or terminate the contract based on the supplier performance or the requirements being a service provider. What are outcomes in ITIL? So outcome refers to the results of performing an activity, following a process, delivering an IT service, and so on. It is used to refer to intended results and actual results. Now, when we deliver a service as a service provider, for example, if we are an organization who provides a taxi services, now consumer who uses the taxi services has various different touch points. The touch points like the mobile app which they use for booking the taxi, the website which they visit to book the taxi. Similarly, the contact which they interact with the driver, the time it takes for vehicle to arrive, the way the vehicle is maintained, then the entire experience during the travel. So various different touch points the consumer of the services will have. Based on those experiences, the interpretation of whether the service is good, the service is not good, should we really look at the service as a genuine which is complementing and contributing to accomplishment of our objectives. So all these experiences where the service consumer, the user comes across, impress upon determining what exactly the value of the service means. Outcomes, the outcomes are realized. So we can speak about the output, the results, what is accomplished by a service, like the time it took to reach the consumer after booking the taxi, the way the vehicle is maintained. So all these have certain amount of metrics to check, but the experience of the consumer determines the perception mainly. So how the customer perceives, the user perceives that particular value determine that outcomes. Outcome refers to the result of performing an activity, result of those particular features, functionality, which creates an experience to the consumer. So every services which is provided by a service provider, it is very essential to understand not just an output but also the outcomes which can get created to the consumer, and this also requires an active collaboration with the consumers. So which means value co-creation, active involvement of consumers and service providers, and together realizing the value. Service provider provides it whereas service consumer realizes it while consuming the service. So service provider should ensure the perspective of the service is properly understood by service consumer, and service consumer objectives are accomplished by utilizing these services. So that's how the value co-creation happens. Outcomes from a service specific utilization of a specific service can be realized by the service consumer. So they are both quantitative and qualitative in nature. The success of outcomes are greatly based on the perspective of the people who uses the services. So why do we need engage as part of service value chain? So service value chain has various different activities like engage, plan, design and transition, obtain, build, deliver and support, improve. So these are the 6 activities it has, where engage comes as a first activity. So to engage with the consumers, to engage with the users. This is required to provide an understanding of the needs of the stakeholders with active collaboration in various different scenarios. So these engagement can be to fulfill the new service. These engagement can be for ensuring the existing services has to be improved to the next level, or to resolve an incident when incident occurs, the disruption occurs. So this requires active engaging with the stakeholders so that necessary transparency, necessary details will be obtained. The picture, the clarity the service provider can get. So this requires a regular engaging with the stakeholders with a good relationship. What is utility in ITIL? So the term utility refers to the functionalities offered by product or services to meet a particular need, the features and functionality of a specific service. So if I speak about a taxi service, as I was mentioning earlier, the features and functionality offered by the website, the mobile app, and by availing that services, what exactly I get. It's not just a travel, or am I going to get some vouchers? So all this defines, all these are features and functionalities of a service. Like we speak about timelines of how long the taxi takes to reach, that is also a feature, a specific feature. And we would also say a specific feature of a driver, the vehicle, we'd articulate those. Even that is a features and functionality. So through these features and functionality, the consumers experiences the service. Consumers make some perception out of it. So value gets realized through that particular utility. So utility also refers to fit for purpose. What is service request management? So the service request management practice supports the agreed quality of service by handling service requests in an user-friendly and effective manner. So service requests are the one which are standard request, like standard change, which is pre-approved, pre-authorized, low risk, low impact. So request can be for a query, request can be for implementation of some specific applications, some messengers as an example, which users request, which are already pre-approved. So lot of requests would come across whenever there is a query. I need to understand about something. How does this work? Where do I find specific details about this particular service? I need to have a resetting my password. So these are all comes under standard service request. Reason being that doesn't need a specific approvals and it becomes part of the regular transactions what is being made while utilizing the services. So the prioritization and categorization of service requests is also an essential requirement, because what kind of requests are coming up, how can we able to bring more automation? Like today, password reset is more automated in nature, so nobody should require is required. It's not required for anyone to call the service desk to ask for password reset. So they will have a forgot password feature through which they can reset the password. So likewise, how can I shift back to the user, shift left, so that all those service requests which are standard can be fulfilled by click of a button by the user themselves. So that effort at the service desk level relating to service request can be reduced, which also improves the user experiences. Right? These depends on processes and procedures to maximize the certainty, means the efficiency of the practice with the help of tracking and automation tools, as I was mentioning. So what are the objectives of the guiding principles in the service value system? So the objectives of the guiding principles uh, are various. However, we need to understand what is that principles are. So principles are something which is guiding the entire service management, and it is looking at organization as a whole, entire system as a whole, which can be followed at any given scenarios. So it is global, it is universal, it is self-validating and empowering. So these are the recommendations that would guide an organization in every scenarios, regardless of the changing goals, the strategies, type of work, the management or structure. So following or demonstrating these principles by the service provider on a regular basis ensure the value creation to the consumer as well as to the business of a service provider. What is value? So the term value refers to the perceived benefit which is realized by utilizing the service. So it is very intangible in nature and depends on the experiences of the service consumer. So each service consumer, while they acquire the service, when they receive the service, so they will have a certain set of experiences which they undergo. So these experiences will determine whether these experiences actually made sense to that consumer who is using the service. Is that a value for money what they are paying? All the experiences which the service consumer and users undergoes while receiving that services determines the value, and it is a perceived one. For example, if we use a specific product or service, we go to, for example, use the taxi services. Few of our friends travel in a taxi. Now, all of us need not say this was a great experience. All of us need not say, may not say this is not a good experience. So one of us would say it is a great experience. One of us would say it is okay. Other one would say it is not a good experience. It is okay, kind of thing. So there is a variation in terms of perception, the experiences, the interpretation of the consumers. So this requires a closer collaboration with the consumers and understanding their perspective views, how consumer realizes the value. So this helps in actually understanding the services value, how it is realized, and how I can enable that more. So value is perceived benefit, which is realized by the service consumer by using or utilizing a specific service or product. What happens to cost and risk when a consumer receives a service? So when a consumer receives a service, so consumer basically paying certain amount of monetary value, right? So to avail that service. Now what if I do it myself? Now when I compare to that, I do it myself versus I go for a service, I avail a service. When I compare that way, so it is very visible to me the difference in terms of cost and risk which I need to incur as well as which I need to manage. So which means when I go for a service as a consumer, when I pay for a service, I'm just paying for certain amount of money which is not equal to the cost and risk which I may require to undergo, or I may require to consider when I do it myself. So all that cost and risk are transferred to the service provider from consumer while receiving the service from a service provider. So, for example, taxi, if I have my own car and I start driving it, so all the cost associated with purchasing a car, maintaining it, insurance, again, I need to purchase for that car, then a driver, the maintenance of the car, cleaning services every day, and then using it. So, this is a costly thing. So, cost and risk associated with is higher compared to just using a taxi services and paying some minimal amount to move from place 1 to place 2. So that way cost and risks are transferred to service provider, and the cost and risk which are there with the service consumer is as minimal as possible. What are the roles of service consumer? So there are three roles of consumer, that is customer, user and sponsor. So the customer refers to that role in the service consumer organization who provides the requirements, whereas user is the one who uses the service, and sponsor role approves the budget or gives that money which is required for service, pays that money. Now this dynamics differs when there is a services which is being done to a business versus a service which is done to an individual. When the service is done to a business, now there are various roles which are there in an organization, so it has a specific structure. If, for example, a training service, if I take an example, Simply Learn being a training organization, there is one organization who comes and approaches Simply Learn, we need ITIL training. Now, Simply Learn is mostly discussing with learning and development team in that organization, who is playing the role of customer. Now, who are the users? The employees of an organization, of that organization, who comes and participates in the training. So they will be the users. Who are the sponsors? The department heads or a specific individual in the organization, like financial head is another thing, or HR head, who approves the budget for this training. He's playing the role of sponsor. So we can easily see these three roles existing in an organization perspective. But if I am seeing someone approaches, an individual approaches Simply Learn that I want to go through this training. So as an individual consumer, this person is playing the role of customer, user and sponsor, because all the requirements is mentioned by this particular user or the individual who is actually speaking about the requirements of training, and that person is participating in the training and the same person is paying for it. So meaning the role of customer, user and sponsor is played by the single individual in the case of retail scenarios where single user goes and receives that service, pays for that service and expresses the requirements related to that services. So three roles of consumers involves customer, user and sponsor. So what does service relationship includes? So service relationship is required to be established with service consumers as well as suppliers. But looking at the perspective of a service consumer by a service provider, establishment of a service relationship. So it is very essential for better collaboration and value co-creation. So in the service relationship, the actions involves during service provisioning by service provider, by service consumption, service consumer is doing certain activities, and service relationship management, which should be very effectively managed so that each one of them are complementing to the scenario of the services. So three things which are involved in service relationship management are service provisioning, service consumption and service relationship management. How are the classifications of the suppliers done? So already we know when we say supplier, it's an external organization who is providing certain product or services to the service provider, third party organization. So these specific product and services supplied by a supplier depends on various different impacts of that service on the services itself. The classification is made, and accordingly the engagement and management of that particular supplier should be done. So the four classification levels can be looked at like strategic supplier, tactical suppliers, operational supplier, commodity suppliers. So strategic suppliers are the one without their services, my services cannot run. So for example, if I'm speaking about training service, which we are speaking about for Simplilearn, if I do not have a license from PeopleCert, if I do not have license from Axelos to conduct ITL services, I cannot even conduct ITL service. So very strategic in nature. So entire ITL services I'm not authorized to do without having the license from them. So without having that supply from them. So strategic suppliers. So tactical suppliers may be an example like an internet service provider. If you are doing a LVC, global live virtual class sessions, which are more predominant nowadays. Now, if there is no sharing platform like WebEx or an internet connection, if they don't function, that individual training sessions which are happening cannot happen. So those are again important, not as strategic, but it will have an impact to every transactions we make. So tactical suppliers. Operation suppliers, the organizations who provide the services to me to monitor the functioning, who can, for example, who develop a material for me, training material, maybe who monitors my infrastructure. So operational suppliers, who does an AMC is another example. So commodity suppliers can be referred to as who supplies spares, who supplies a specific pen, paper to organizations. So these can be referred to as commodity suppliers. So when the non-availability of the supply from the specific supplier is not there, means it is not available, how the impact to my service? Can I really have my services provided to customer without any interruptions? So which is that service which will have more impact? So I'll consider that. Based on that, I'll classify and categorize my suppliers. So how is service value system different than service life cycle? So service value system is defined and explained, articulated in service value system defined in ITL 4. So this considers and provides the insights towards the entire organization and all the services which are involved in business value creation. So which have various different components like principles, governance, service value chain, practices, then continual improvement. So visualizing the entire organization, a holistic view, which is very essential while looking at value creation for an organization in entirety. So and visualization of many services which are there together, connected in certain way, and creating the value. So co-creation is happening. And at the same time, service value system stresses upon co-creation of value means active engagement with the consumers. Now, when it comes to service life cycle, so we are looking at a individual specific service and its life cycle, the beginning and end of its life, particular service. So it starts and people start using it, then it peaks up and saturation point it reach. Maybe there are other set of services which gets introduced meanwhile. So because of that, their efficiency and effectiveness, which the newly introduced service or product, the one which is already peaked its saturation level will decline. For example, if I speak about a service like telegraph services or telegram services for quick messaging. So today it is not there. We use SMS service or messengers, what we use for quick messaging. So likewise, various different technology advancement happens, various different ways of fulfilling the specific requirement happens. The way it was fulfilled earlier would get retired. So new way of doing it will become more and more utilization of that. And as lessen the existing services utilization, that will be retired. So from the point a service is introduced till the service is retired, it is called service life cycle. So many such services with various different life cycle stage we can see in a service value system. So all of them are seen together, visualized together, and then managing them together to create the value ultimately. That's what the visualization service value system would have. What does EDM refers to in governance? So EDM defined in governance refers to evaluate, direct and monitor. So the governing body of an organization evaluates the various different scenarios around the business and provide the necessary directions to the management. So taking these directions provided by the governing body, for example, IT governance provides direction to IT service management. So taking these directions, based on that directions, management puts efforts or defines the processes and the structure which is required to ensure the achievement of those business objectives or the objectives which are provided, a direction which is provided by governing body. If it is a bank, for example, compliance to a regulatory as a bank is essential. Now, corporate governance of a bank provides directions relating to this. Based on that, IT governance set a direction to IT service management. So IT service management has to implement those solutions in such a way that regulatory compliance is accomplished. So and these are monitored on regular basis, means the management actions, the results, what comes up towards the direction set. So governing body monitors it, and based on those learnings also, they will provide the necessary directions. So this is a continual process which keeps happening. So governance is an authority who makes a decision. It is an authority who sets the directions for organizations, based on which management creates a particular structure, a process, and activities and action them so that necessary results, appropriate results can be accomplished. How does project management practice fits into service management framework? So project management practice is also one which is defined in ITIL 4 framework, which is very essential in every service scenarios. So the term project refers to a temporary initiative taken to accomplish an unique and specific outputs and outcomes. Now these specific outputs can be a product, a service or a result. So how do we use this in service management scenario? So when I visualize a specific service and its life cycle, so we need projects triggered in the entire service life cycle. So why do we trigger project for a service? So we need project, we should trigger a project to introduce service. We need to have a project triggered for modifying the features functionality of a project. We need to trigger a project to improve the service performance. We need to trigger a project to retire a service. So in the entire life cycle of that service, we will come across many different projects triggered to accomplish a specific objectives related to that particular service. So service introduction, service modification, service retirement, each of these scenarios requires triggering a project management approaches, a best practices of project management. That's it in this video. I hope these set of questions provided you certain insights and enabled you better to attend the interview. I wish you all the best and see you in the next video soon. Thank you.
Hi there, if you like this video, subscribe to the Simplilearn YouTube channel and click here to watch similar videos. To nerd up and get certified, click here.